Welcome to BitBoy Crypto. This is Around the Blockchain. Come to you Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we're talking USDC and Apple teaming up. That is right. Apple Pay is going to allow crypto. This is huge news. What does it mean for crypto? And also, just got voted down in the Cosmos community, a huge upgrade. Why do they deny it? And is this good for the ecosystem? Maybe a little Q&A. Maybe let's check out the markets. Today have been, but first, we're checking out the markets now. We're checking out the markets. Sorry, guests. Excited. We will come back to you. We do have Bitcoin up. It looks like a nice little pump. The Poland news, there was a huge, I don't want to say huge compared to recent events, but there was a drop off after the Poland news, and it seems like the markets have slightly recovered. You could see a little bit of a pull down. I think it was about right there. And then too hard to see, but a nice little bounce back. Who do we have on today, though? We're going to go and start on the top right. We have Caleb Franzen, always holding it down. Ben's favorite person with glasses, by the way. On the bottom right, we have Mac and Cheesy rocking the new do, rocking the glasses. If there's anything he can't do, we don't know. And on the bottom left, we have Maren Altman. Bring us some takes. She has some inside info on maybe some things we're going to be asking her about. And on the top left, we have Ben Armstrong, still rocking no sleeves, even though it's winter.
No sleeves on the show ever again. I've decided no sleeves on the show ever again.
I love it. I love it. In fact, let's get you a suit with the sleeves cut off, and then we'll give you shorts. Like it's like you're in an '80s rock band there. All right, let's talk about USDC and Apple Pay. What does this partnership mean? This was from a blog post from Circle. Circle, of course, is the issuer behind USDC coin, owned by them, by Center. A lot of that's a whole nother show, the money behind the Circle. In fact, Ben, let's just set the stage. All right, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what's it mean, but what do you think about the powers that be behind Circle and behind USDC, I should say? We have Circle, we have Center. There's a lot of investments from overseas. There's a lot of investments from Coinbase.
The dirty thing people don't want to look at right now is Silvergate. And we're starting to figure out who's buying Silvergate. And you start looking at Silvergate, the biggest crypto bank, I believe, that exists.
Can you just to back up, what is Silvergate? You know, a lot of people may be seeing Silvergate hashtag. What does this mean? What is this big crypto bank?
Well, like
for reference,
Heathgate or Watergate, it's Silvergate. It's where basically all the silver's been stolen. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what it is. Okay, so Silvergate is a bank, and a lot of people know. I was actually talking about this in my C12 group today. We had our bank accounts taken about 2 years ago. Because of a Coinbase transaction. And so we, not only that, but because of that Coinbase transaction I sent to my bank account to buy my house with, thank you BB&T and Truist, F y'all, still hate y'all to this day, is that my bank accounts I had for 20 years, by the way, with them, just closed them overnight. And I had to start looking for some different alternatives for banks because not only did they shut my accounts down, they said that because it was a Coinbase wire, it was fraud, and so they reported me to the bank credit monitoring, basically, and I'm not allowed to have a regular bank account anymore. How crazy is that? So I had to start pursuing all these alternative accounts. So we started looking at Silvergate. We started looking at Revolut. We ended up going with Signature and Signature Bank in New York City, which famously used by the Tinder swindler and also by Anna Delvey. No, Bad Vegan and Anna Delvey both used Signature Bank. So I'm kind of proud of that. Me and Anna Delvey, we bank at the same place. No big deal. But the whole thing is we started really looking into a lot of these banks and trying to figure out exactly which ones are the friendliest. Well, Silvergate is very friendly to institutions. It's not really for the average person, like a person on YouTube who's in crypto, to go get an account there. It's more for, here's who uses Silvergate. Coinbase, Gemini, Paxos, Circle, all of these companies with stable coins. USDC is there. So you really start understanding that if something were to happen to Silvergate, that could be the black swan on the industry that could really send us into a multi-year bear market. And when you start looking at behind Silvergate, we started looking into a little bit of this morning. I know TJ was looking at it, but it's bad stuff when you really start digging in. There's a lot of stuff on Twitter about it, so I'm not going to speculate right now. But Silvergate is a very, very big part of all of this, and it's finally starting to come out. So
and
Dangerous
I did a
times.
little bit of research just this afternoon looking into the Silvergate. I didn't even know you were going to bring it up. I'm glad that you did. A lot of people are comparing it to the Lehman Brothers collapse. I did look at the
Yeah.
assets just for to play devil's advocate, a little silver lining. I think Silvergate had roughly 1/10 of the assets of Lehman Brothers, and that was several years ago. So not quite as big a scope of assets, but it could still be. This is a much smaller community. So it could even be a bigger force felt. Just wanted to point that out. Now, Caleb, I kind of want to, we're talking about Circle, and before we talk about Apple, what are your thoughts of Circle and USDC, say, versus DAI or USDT? Do you have any strong feelings? Do you have any favorites? Do you have any care which stablecoin is in your wallet?
Personally, I don't. I think it's worthwhile for most investors, I think, if you got tied up in the UST scandal earlier this year, I don't want to necessarily call it a scandal, but, clearly there's possibly some need to diversify your stablecoin portfolio. So as it pertains to, the backing or the treasury of USDC versus UST or DAI, as you mentioned, I wouldn't be able to dive into the details for the strengths and weaknesses of either of those platforms. I would like to just piggyback on one thing that Ben had just mentioned, because I think it is definitely worthwhile to, monitor what's happening with SI, is the ticker symbol, because, for example, today their stock was down 17%, while Bitcoin and crypto was, marginally up on the day. So clearly, equity investors are feeling some sense of fear as to what could be happening there and what could be around the corner. Again, I think as of right now, it is just speculation, but we don't know exactly how contagion is going to unfold, so it's worthwhile to keep watching.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, back to Apple Pay and USDC. They do plan on rolling out app form on their smartphones. I was looking at some of the stats when it comes to Apple and their mobile platform. Apple's market share of online payments is only 6%. I would say that, a decent amount, 6%. But when it comes to mobile wallet payments, 92% of all payments done in 2020 in the U.S. were made by Apple Pay. Maren, I'm looking at you. I'm guessing you use Apple over Android. All right. I don't think that was really a shot in the dark there. All right. So do you use Apple Pay as a payment method?
Several times a day. Every time I go on the New York subway, literally, that's how you get on. It's rare to actually see someone using a MetroCard physically, from what I've seen. I mean, occasionally, but almost everyone, it is immediately Apple Pay through the Omni system. So because of that and just the access to Apple Pay, both here and internationally, I carry a credit card for the worst case scenario when I do need one, but it is very rare that I use anything other than Apple Pay, actually.
All right. Well, since you are an avid user, I want to ask you about the UX and the UI experience. When you experience using that app, what do you predict that the rollout will be like? Is this going to be smooth? Is this going to be onerous and clunky? Do you think that widespread crypto adoption where someone's using crypto to pay for their Starbucks, it's kind of that example we always throw out there. Is this the vehicle in which this happens?
I think it would be one of the easiest because, for example, I have my phone here. All I do is like double click this and it's immediately paid. If I'm going on the subway, I don't even have to click this. As soon as I walk by like an Omni thing, it'll unclick and do it. I think that if you were adding your MetaMask or whatever like interface is going to be added to that wallet, if you're double clicking and it immediately goes to your USDC, that's incredibly easy. If they add a second step, that would inhibit adoption a ton. Like anytime you're adding a click or adding a step, that would inhibit it. But if there would be a way to set it as your primary instead of credit card, it goes straight to your wallet to access that. Incredibly easy. I think the ease of it is one of the reasons why I do prefer to use it, not just because it means I don't have to carry credit cards to some places, but because it's just so much easier. So I think if that is the same way crypto is added to it, would be that being added would be extremely good.
All right. Well, Mac and Cheesy, when I saw that number, let me just say one more time, 92% of all mobile wallets is Apple Pay. What do you think this is? Is this really the most, is this bullish news to you? And on what level? To me, I'm hearing this, and I feel like this is the most bullish thing I've heard in months, maybe even over about a year. It's very, very bullish, but the markets obviously don't really care. No one's really, talking about it. Everyone's still kind of talking about the SBF fallout. Crypto Twitter doesn't care about this. What does Mac and Cheesy say about this situation, though?
End of the day, a feature doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to start using it. Sure, it's a step in the right direction, but if there is any sort of friction, kind of as touched upon, that users aren't necessarily going to adopt it. There has to be a reason for them to actually go and do it, right? Right now, Apple Pay, right? You go into the New York City subways, it is seamless. It is so easy. I go to a restaurant. Sometimes I don't even bring my wallet because I don't need it. I have my cell phone. If there is any additional step or friction or no incentive for me to actually leverage this new form of payment, then you can't really necessarily expect the end user to change their actions. For the user to start adopting it, there has to be some sort of reason for it, right? So you look kind of at like different payment mechanisms like Strike and them trying to get rid of like vendors and credit card payments. Well, why would a vendor want to use something like Strike? Well, they can reduce their payments that they're paying to credit card vendors. They can reduce that percentage so it's incentivizing them to save money. So that's what will lead to certain adoption there. In this case, if it's literally just taking your money, in this case, it's pretty much like dollars, and just spending it directly instead of using something like a credit card where you're actually earning points, it's kind of counterintuitive, and I don't necessarily see people using it. Of course, it is a step in the right direction, and you need to have this before you can have true adoption and like these smaller crypto payments. But I'm not necessarily expecting people to kind of walk into their Panera Bread and start using USDC.
Yeah, but that broccoli soup's so good. All right, now Ben Armstrong, I'm going to ask you about my favorite stablecoin. Is Apple going to add Tether? Why or why not?
Well, no, absolutely not, because Apple and USDC are thick as thieves here. Yeah, you have to understand, USDC, Circle, Coinbase is all part of the master plan. This is all getting you guys ready for the CBDC that is going to be USDC. And think about the easy, on-ramping of everybody to using the Fed dollar. They're doing it right now. They're going to put it on Apple Pay for you. But I think what I would say is, like, I'm so excited about the idea of being able to buy a cup of coffee with crypto, because we do know that is the standard for adoption.
It brought Jack Mallers to tears, man.
About that,
it brought Jack to tears.
Years now, before Bitcoin was even created. When can you buy a cup of coffee with crypto? I can do it right now. My Crypto.com card, if I have any money left in that account after I drained it all. But,
Wait, were the tears unwarranted then? Because it seemed like a really big deal at the last Bitcoin conference. Caleb, I want to ask you about Android adoption. What do you think the Android team is thinking right now? And also, does it even matter when Apple has 92% of the market share?
I think that's a good point. I can't remember, but I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago I was on the show and we were talking about Android versus Apple and kind of talking about how, once again, it seems like Android is kind of behind the curve on this stuff, and Apple is just kind of pushing forward. They're quick to innovate.
You said you have a BlackBerry still, right? On the record, you said I still have BlackBerry.
Man, that was actually my first phone. I had a BlackBerry Pearl. But no, man, I'm iPhone to the core. Yeah, so I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, think about Apple. They are essentially the premier consumer product company today. So if they're able to make this work, make it seamless, which I wouldn't necessarily have any doubts about, that'll be interesting. The one thing that I noticed is I went to the press release and there was one section, it was like literally the first or second sentence that stood out to me. And I'm reading it verbatim. It says, "We're excited to announce that eligible businesses who build with Circle can now help further boost their sales by accepting Apple Pay." So again, this is for eligible businesses. I don't know if we actually have defining terms around who is an eligible business. And then the second criteria is those who build with Circle. So I think that will be interesting to see how it manifests. Again, like, this isn't going to be something right now where you're going to be paying for the New York City subway with Apple Pay via USDC, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how this actually manifests going forward.
All right. Well, let's switch gears a little and talk about Cosmos. I do want to bring up the chart real quick. They just had a big upgrade that got voted down. This is the 1-year chart. It looks like most crypto charts. If we hit that all, you can see that nice bull run of 21 there. Even had a nice couple months in 2022 there. If we look at the 7-day, maybe see if there's any action on the charts. Maybe a little front ran information there. Maybe a little front ran information there. People maybe buying the rumor, selling the news. They just had a community reject Atom 2.0 upgrade. This is going to allow, basically just going to upgrade the token, and they allow people to vote on it in a democratic method called a DAO. Imagine that, instead of just one person in the shadows controlling everything. But they voted no. The co-founder of Cosmos did have a tweet responding to the vote. To those who voted no with veto, I respect your decision and hear you loud and clear. The proposal in its current form is untenable, even if it passed. Amendments would have been necessary. They had 4 votes. Just to be clear here, 47. Most people, or the biggest share, went to in favor of yes. 47 voted yes. 37% voted no with veto. And this is the important part. To prevent a 51% attack, if 33% say no with veto, it is rejected, even if 52, 53, 54% of people wanted. Well, Maren, when I think of Cosmos, I think of the stars. When I think of the stars, I think of Maren Altman. But do you have any strong thoughts on Cosmos first? It's an older coin, doesn't really do too much in the ecosystem. Do you have any strong feelings, yay or nay?
I'd say that I appreciate the fact that they seem to be, from the people I've spoken with who are part of the team and the initiatives on it, they very much are focusing on building themselves. They're not worried on any sort of tie, narrative, competition, anything related to other projects. So I do appreciate the fact that it seems to be, in I guess the simplest terms, a smart person group project. Like from the people I've talked to, what I've seen is just they're dedicated to like building. I don't have anything super high level or I guess macro to speak about with it.
As far as macro, I kind of want to ask you, because they just rejected this proposal, or enough people said veto where it didn't go through. But was there anything maybe in the stars that where people are going to be more disagreeable, or did this actually go contrary to what the people would be expecting behaviors to coalesce as?
Yeah, I don't have any comments for this situation, but I will say that there are several things going on right now that say ideological disagreements that are later than like revoked, or ideological disagreements over the next 2 months that are essentially Mars is retrograde squaring Neptune. I know that means little to nothing to anyone, but it shows that currently there are disagreements ideologically because of lack of clarity that will in 2 to 3 months then be revoked or have the position reversed.
Well, I think a lot of people it does matter too, but my main thought was, why the heck is our elections during this 2-month window? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Good one.
Election is actually on a lunar eclipse, so yeah.
All right. Well, Mac and Cheesy, it got voted no. I mean, when you saw the headline, did you think this is the death of Atom, or are they going to rebuild and have even stronger upgrade in the future?
I think just the community votes no or yes or maybe, or what's more important is the engagement and the people that are interested in actually what is happening, right? If nobody's voting, there's nothing to vote. There's no right. There's no decision that needs to be made. So I do think that end of the day, acting as like a DAO and having like proper voting mechanics is important. A couple things. A, is it too late to move the election so that it's not on a lunar eclipse?
Let's make a new amendment.
Worth considering. And yeah, I think what's more interesting here is these organizations and groups kind of following these principles in a sense of, we want to implement this, but if it doesn't get voted on and it doesn't get approved, then we can't necessarily take the actions needed. And I think this, although DAOs are kind of very much ideal in a sense that they actually, in how they'll actually operate, I do like to see people actually trying to navigate these waters and figure it out.
All right. Now, Ben, I kind of want to ask you about Polkadot and how the voting did go down. I mean, they voted no, but more people wanted yes than no. But the no vote is just so powerful, it didn't go through. Do you think that this could end up being a ETH Classic situation? Do you think that maybe there's going to be a fork? Just to read that number one more time, I think it was 47%.
Polkadot, you mean Cosmos?
Say what?
You said Polkadot?
Cosmos. Yeah, Atom. But 47% voted in favor. So do you think that a fork is in the near future here?
I don't know if Atom can fork. I'm not sure about
question.
That. Yeah.
I'm not the tech guy.
Not everything can fork. I know you want to fork everything. Everything that moves, DZ, but
I like to monkey around. Look at my hat,
Look, I think, when a lot of these people, they bark up the wrong tree when, they can't come to the decision that they want. And so they want to fork projects and move projects and stuff like that. I think consensus works the way it's supposed to. And I think that, I like the system that they built, right? You don't want a bunch of wishy-washy people that are like, we kind of want this, we kind of don't. And look, one of the greatest strengths of Bitcoin is that it hardly ever changes. It hardly ever changes. When you look back at the last few changes, the last one was, what stupid name was the last one called? The one before that was SegWit. The last one was the upgrade of, what was it called? Nobody knows.
I'm tapping it in right.
Taproot. There you go.
Taproot.
Taproot.
Did that do anything?
I got you.
No,
what did that
not.
even? Right.
Nothing that we can see. It's like super on the developer
Right.
side. It's something to do with private keys and stuff, but it's nothing that we're going to really understand. But that right there drives home the point. Like, even the things they do are such minor upgrades or changes. Some people wouldn't even consider them upgrades, that it just stays the course and it just stands the time, the test of history, because it doesn't change. That's what makes it so strong. I mean, look at Ethereum. It changes all the time. We think it's great changes. But why are they making so many changes? Well, because it wasn't set up as well as Bitcoin was set up. Nothing was set up as well as Bitcoin was set up. The strength and privacy of the network, the size of the network, and the fact it never changes, those are the things that make Bitcoin way stronger than everything else. So if you're going to have a community that's going to be basically split down the middle and like, we kind of like this, we kind of don't, let's vote it in, let's not. And then the people on the other side are like, well, then let's just change everything. Like, I don't think that's a good way to operate. So I like the fact that they've weighted the votes with the vetoes. I think it's a better way to do it. I think they're really trying to follow more of the Bitcoin model of let's not change all the time, because, it's not good for, just look at Bitcoin. How great has it been for Bitcoin that it hasn't really changed? Well, things around Bitcoin have changed. What we look at, like in terms of what Bitcoin is, has changed, but Bitcoin itself has not changed. That gets at the track record that all these maxis are able to come out today. I mean, look, I felt, the closest I've ever been to being a maxi was this weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not sitting around looking and saying, I still believe that decentralization can be done in a way that makes sense. I think we can have decentralized networks.
Show my shirt.
I think they can work. Hey, there's your Bitcoin maxi. Oh my gosh.
Not the wide. Not the wide.
My
Come
God.
on now. No one wants to know. This isn't DZ After Dark. No one. All right. Well, our views just
Anyway,
plummeted. I apologize, Ben.
Yeah.
All right.
What's that?
Well, go ahead.
No,
I was
what
just
did you say?
I'm pretty sure we just lost half the viewers there. That's definitely my fault. Well, Caleb, Ben brings up a good point. Let's just call it the Bitcoin blueprint here. Do you think the Bitcoin blueprint of being hesitant to change and just making sure everything is buttoned up and all the nuts and bolts are squared away, is that going to be a recipe for success, or is Cosmos too slow in adapting to new technologies?
It's interesting. I think from my perspective, and tagging on to Ben's point, right, is like Bitcoin's system and the stability of it and the lack of change is one of its biggest assets. And it's basically, you can't replicate that. And so when we think about, the broader crypto ecosystem, having these foundations or nonprofits behind them, whatever the case might be, they have different incentives or motives perhaps that can run contrary to the long-term plan or success of the overall protocol or project. And so one of my favorite sayings is the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And so, oftentimes one of the best things to do is to not change. And I'm not saying I'm like good at blackjack, right? But one strategy that I've messed around with is if I have like less than 14, I won't hit, because the more you hit, the more probability you have of going bust. And so by simply just preserving what you have and staying still, sitting on your hands, you might set yourself up for better success. And so it's interesting to see this get rejected. I think, I would also agree with what Mac and Cheesy pointed out. Just the simple fact that they're getting a significant amount of votes is important and perhaps shows the health of that ecosystem and project going forward. I'd be curious to know, because one of the big things that, kind of got it shut down was the fact that there wasn't a necessarily clear roadmap for what the funds were going to be used for in the short term, right? And so the big part about this was that they were going to increase their short-term supply, which, I'm assuming that the company or the institution behind the Cosmos ecosystem was going to be essentially using that as somewhat of a down round capital fundraise, right? So what exactly did they need the money for in the short-term interim to get through the bear market? The fact that it got rejected could, I wouldn't say raise red flags, but it'll be interesting to see if we get any announcements about fundraising or capital structure here in the coming months.
Yeah, maybe a tweet saying, hey, we're looking to hire. Now, Caleb, quick blackjack question. The dealer showing 10s. You have 14. Are you hitting? Yes? No?
I think in that case, you got to go for it.
Okay, yeah, dealer shows 10. I was about to actually have
yeah,
BJ reduce points if you said, I'm sticking at 14. Mac and Cheesy, he brings up, you've actually ran a couple Web3 businesses. You know what it's like to hire devs. What do you think of Caleb's, theory right there that, they obviously probably need to raise funds during this bear market. And now that this got rejected, what do you say is going to be in their 6-month roadmap now that, do you think that they are going to say, we're looking to build Catalyst Fund, give us money? I mean, do you see something like that possibly happening here?
It really depends what's kind of going on under the hood. I think a lot of people, you've seen it on like crypto Twitter, and who now they have to kind of explain how their company is positioned for like the quote unquote extended bear market, and specifically how their assets are being held in terms of like their balance sheet, whatever it may be, to actually handle these expenses and what their runway is. Like, is that runway in FTT tokens? If yes, then they probably need to raise more money. If no, okay, maybe they're positioned for a long-term success, right? So depending on where your company is from like a runway perspective, right, that changes everything. Because if you have enough runway for 36 months or, however long it may be, okay, now you're positioned, right? You can kind of continue to build, head down, where you need to be. But if you're concerned the next 6 to 8 months and 50% of your balance sheet is in Ethereum, okay, how are we going to survive? Because if this asset cuts in half, now that 6 goes to 3, and you're probably not going to find like product market fit in that 3 months or whatever. So I think end of the day for companies right now, it's like, how can you position yourself so that at the end of this bear market, you're still alive and you can then capitalize on the next bull market?
Okay, good points there. All right, and we're going to end it with Maren here, but I do want to acknowledge this super chat. I didn't choose this name, Maren. It's Astrological Ether Tarot. And speaking of Adam, no fork. We vote on everything, DZ. So thank you very much if you are part of the Adam ecosystem, giving us the alpha there. Now, Maren, I kind of want to ask you about just the average person's mentality right now in this bear market. Let's just say you are one of these people who are going to vote. You're not pouring through the GitHub submissions. You're not living in the Discord. Maybe you just have a basic understanding of the vote. What does the bear market do to your decision-making process, though? Are you thinking of maybe rocking the boat and maybe trying to find a new current to get out of these dark waters? Or are you afraid of rocking the boat because you might capsize? What do you think the bear market's doing to people's decision-making?
Yeah, I'd say that people are much less risk averse and much less willing to change or make a large transition, simply due to the fact that, if there's less you can just look at the timeline. There's less engagement, there's less contribution. I think less and less people are willing to make a major change or a major difference. I think that part of the reason to knock this down is just a general air of like, please don't fuck up even more. Like, there has been so much negative change and very little to possibly no identifiable very positive change within the last few weeks. I know myself just as like a founder building during this time. You can't just help but like laugh in a way. Like, I wouldn't trade it because the lessons are so great, but it does mean like, by no means am I putting my balance sheet into a liquid Solana DeFi. Like, absolutely not. So there's just there's a much less risk averse mentality right now to make any sort of major changes or contributions.
Yeah, but the APY is 4 digits. It must be good. All right, that is all we have time for. And looks like Caleb ended up stealing it from Ben right there at the end. I think it was all that good Cosmos talk. And we got to get you and Ben on the same poker table. I didn't know you liked the cards. Ben likes the cards. So maybe we'll have to work up something in Vegas in the near future. But Caleb, you won. Feel free. Take us away with some parting thoughts, please, sir.
Hey, first of all, I'm down to hop on that poker table, Ben. That'd be a blast. I just want to remind people right now, in a rising interest rate environment, especially as the Fed starts to accelerate balance sheet runoff, we need to remember that the tide of liquidity is getting pulled out of the market. And so it's exposing naked swimmers, right? There's that classic Warren Buffett quote. So we don't know where contagion events are going to materialize next, but I just continue to exercise patience and prudence in this market. And, we'll have additional buying opportunities for sure. And so there's no need to rush and FOMO if we start to see some upside momentum build here. Stick to your plan. We'll all be all right.
Stick to your plan. We're pushing P, patience, prudence. That's all we have for you today. Until next time, BitSquad. Easy out.